Well, good afternoon and welcome to the 25th DEM I Wonder webinar. DEM has so many services, offering programs and hidden gems that we want to share with all of you. So we're excited to take just a few minutes each week to highlight these features in our weekly webinar. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many exercises have been postponed or canceled. The Utah Division of Emergency Management is hosting this weekly webinar series aimed at providing local emergency managers with relevant content and opportunities to enhance their capabilities. Webinars are live for Q&A and recorded for later viewing on the DEM website and YouTube channel. Most of these webinars are seminars or workshops with a hands-on portion, which will allow emergency managers to become oriented to a DEM process or test a DEM product. Our schedule today will be as follows. We'll start with our ground rules and etiquette. Next week, we'll have a brief presentation by Tara Bahunin on I Wonder How the SARs Reimbursement Program Works. Following the presentation, there will be a hands-on portion where participants will be encouraged to test out the product or process that was presented. Following the hands-on portion of our program, the presenter will be available for a Q&A session. Following the Q&A, we will close with a short message about upcoming webinars. The ground rules today are fairly simple. Please mute your line while the presenter is presenting. If you have a question, you may type it in the group chat or unmute at the appropriate time to ask your question. This session is being recorded and will be available on our website for future viewing. Thank you all for your attention today. With that, we'll turn it over to Tara.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So we are talking about the Utah Search and Rescue Assistance Program today. Outside of my duties as working with the Division of Emergency Management and the liaison section, I also serve as the program coordinator for the Utah Search and Rescue Reimbursement Program. I've been doing this on and off since about 2005, and it's a great program, and I love working alongside the advisory board and help with the statewide search and rescue team. So we'll dive in. I'll give you an overview of the program and why it's important for all of us to know. Many of you are emergency managers, and some of you may be familiar with the search and rescue program due to your counterparts within the respective sheriff's office, or you may not. And so I hope that this provides some information for you. So first of all, what is the program? What does it do? So in 1997, then Senator John Ballantyne created House Bill 32, which basically imposes a search and rescue surcharge and fee to off-highway vehicles, motorboats, sailboats, and annual wildlife habitat authorizations. So anytime there's fishing permits, hunting, ATV, and this is for registrations and renewals, there would be like a small surcharge added on to that, and then that's deposited straight into a state general fund, which then is dedicated specifically to the search and rescue reimbursement program. And in creating this reimbursement program, it also created the Search and Rescue Advisory Board, which would oversee how the money would be dispersed and how the program was run. So the Utah Search and Rescue Advisory Board is comprised of 3 sheriffs, and currently that is a sheriff from Grand County, Sevier County, and Washington County, and then 2 Sheriff Search and Rescue Association representatives, and those 2 are representing Sevier County and Salt Lake County, and the Division of Emergency Management Director at the time, and then 1 citizen at large, which the governor appoints. And so the terms within the advisory board are a 4-year term, and those are usually appointed by the Sheriff's Association. And so this is an ongoing, since the beginning of 1997, we've had some run through, but usually they stay on for a good chunk of time just to help keep things steady and maintaining, kind of the efforts going forward. So there's not a ton of turnover, which helps the efforts of the board. And I'll go into this a little further in the next slide, but in addition to all the fees from licenses and permits, recently the Utah Search and Rescue Assistance Card was created to also support this fund. And these funds are just used to reimburse the counties, specifically the sheriff's office, the search and rescue teams within the sheriff's offices for any allowable costs incidental to search and rescue activities, trainings, and equipment purchases. So real quick, historically, searches throughout the state, the biggest group that are being rescued in Utah's vast recreational territory are hikers and climbers. And as you know, it doesn't cost much, it doesn't cost any money to go out and hike or to climb outside of your own personal equipment. But they're most often the ones that are needing assistance in the backcountry. And so in 2017, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, specifically the Office of Outdoor Recreation, in conjunction with DEM and the Search and Rescue Advisory Board, created the Utah Search and Rescue Assistance Card with the goal of better funding the program, which was going out and supporting and rescuing these outdoor recreationists, whether they just be locals or tourists. And so this was created. It provides an either an option for an individual pass or a family pass, a 1-year subscription or a 5-year subscription. And basically, again, that money goes directly into the Search and Rescue Fund. It provides financial coverage for the search and rescue operations to the county entities and helps alleviate the costs to individuals and agencies following search and rescue operations. Now, historically speaking, there's only been 2 counties within Utah who have had to go back and charge for a rescue operation to that individual or group that did use those services or needed them. More often than not, the counties don't want to do that. They want to provide the service of making sure people stay alive. But obviously the costs can get up there depending on the extent of the resources needed to go and search and rescue an individual. So since 2017, to date, we've sold about 2,000 cards, totaling in sales at about $118,000, which has greatly benefited the Search and Rescue General Fund. Typically, now again, I've been doing this on and off since 2005, and so I would say average, just with the fees from the hunting and fishing licenses and OHV, we were seeing about 230 to 50 grand a year. And then this has bumped it up a little more, which again helps. And as we go further in this presentation, you'll see how that's broken down, how we try to reimburse the participating agencies. But it's definitely helped put more money back to the local level. And so you can get more information specific to the Search and Rescue Assistance Card, which also provides an opportunity for donations as well. You don't necessarily have to buy the card, but it's a great program and helps what I'm talking about. But it also provides an opportunity for those who wish to donate, which is always lovely. So how does it work? So the program aligns within the fiscal year, and applications reflecting both financial and statistical information are submitted within a 45-day deadline period based off of when the search was, when the training occurred, or when a piece of equipment was purchased. And all of the information gathered in this application that you see on screen is utilized not only to help reimburse counties, but it's also valuable in gathering the information that is needed to not only show how busy the statewide search and rescue teams are, and therefore need further support for their programs, but also further goes into a formula which impacts their disbursement, which we'll talk about later, that they receive annually. So information that we gather on these applications, which at this time is still a hard copy and requires a original sheriff's signature, and we hope that in the future this can be a digital form for everyone's ease and enjoyment. You'll see that there is a search, a training, and an equipment category. And then within each of these categories, there are allowable expenses within each of those. You'll see, for instance, there's food and fuel, rental of equipment, if that's a fixed wing, if that's an ATV, if that's trailer, what have you, whatever is needed to successfully search and rescue, or even to train these team members in their skills to then go out and utilize them in the terrain in which they have to be in within their county to help search. Those costs are allowable. And so those are submitted and reviewed by the board quarterly. And we also gather information such as where did they reside? Do they reside in or out of the county in which they're being rescued? Do they reside in or out of the state? And just for statistical purposes and just good information to know and then to share publicly and further influence additional support. Also, we gather what kind of activity it was, what happened, how the search was conducted. Recently, we added what land ownership, was it on Forest Service or BLM? Again, just for further awareness as to what these search and rescue teams are doing within the state. And then additionally, we gathered the equipment that was used and the man hours total. And so this is submitted. The board then meets quarterly and reviews those applications and ensures that they are allowable costs and determines what is allowable versus not allowable. So for instance, fuel and food costs associated with a search are 100% covered. What is not covered would be maintenance. So oil changes or tire purchases. Clothing is an allowable expense as long as it is clearly identified as, coming upon that person wearing that jacket, you can clearly see it's a search and rescue team member. But like long johns are not allowable costs. So again, we meet quarterly, we go over each application that's submitted. That's what I do is I take in all the applications, I sort through, make sure all accounting and documentation is attached, and then the board reviews. And then annually, we then meet to do the financial reimbursement for those participating counties and work in the formula. And this is what the formula aligns with, really, is it takes into account the population of the county, the number of missions within that fiscal year, the number of man hours, specifically volunteer hours, because a lot of statewide search and rescue teams are not paid. They do it on a voluntary basis. A lot of them, some of them may be out of the sheriff's office, but a lot of them volunteer their time to being a part of these teams. The formula also takes into account late applications and then where the victim resides. So those are some of the items that go in and can help, and sometimes if they get late applications can hurt their disbursement. So historically, the program, it's our goal every year that 100% of allowable search costs and training costs are reimbursed to the jurisdictions. And so once the formula is run out, what we do is we cover search and trainings first, and then what the remaining amount is, we put into that formula to reimburse equipment. And so since 1997, the Utah Search and Rescue Financial Assistance Program has paid out 100% of search and training costs, and then overall about 20 to 30% of equipment costs have been reimbursed. And this is, again, the goal of providing and working to find more areas to fund the general fund, to beef that up so that we can put more reimbursement back into the equipment costs, back to the locals. So recently, our wonderful DEM GIS team created the Search and Rescue Dashboard, which I'm going to show you real quick. We had previously created a hard copy annual report, and this is a really great interactive dashboard that pulls from the information that I'm inputting once I get these applications, and is showing to date from the beginning of this program where, what things, a good snapshot of what things look like within the program. So you can see, we've had, and again, this captures the participating, I do need to make this clear. This captures the participating counties and they're submitting information. Typically in the time that I've done this, we've had roughly about 20 to 23 participating counties. So we're still missing a handful or two handfuls, but this shows what they are submitting to us. This also may not capture the entirety because we understand that there's a lot of people within these sheriff's offices that are not able to fill out an application for, even if it's just statistical. even for every rescue mission, just because they're so active. As you can imagine, knowing our, our tourist areas and the mountains and things that attract folks, like they can't capture everything. So this is a decent snapshot, but I want to be clear, it may not be capturing everything. So you can look at, how many total rescued, the in-county versus out-of-county, out-of-state versus in, and then, to show what's been awarded to date, close to $6 million, which is fantastic. The other great thing about this dashboard is that you can search by county, and you can, watch how that changes. So, where it was traditionally hikers are the top rescued in Grand County, it goes straight up to mountain bikers. And you can filter specific to a fiscal year and show, what happened specifically to that year, how much they were awarded, and so forth. So this has been a really great, useful data sharing tool that I'm really appreciative that the GIS team brought into our search and rescue lives. And I can drop that link in the chat if you are interested. It's housed within the DEM website. So that's been a fantastic inclusion. So bring this back. Okay, so challenges within the search and rescue financial reimbursement program. Mainly the lack of a dedicated search and rescue coordinator to take the time to be able to submit all the details specific to a search and rescue and then send that on up to us. That has a lot of turnover sometimes, and so sometimes the search and rescue applications get lost, or there's a gap in submission, and therefore kind of a gap in the reimbursement or funding that they receive. They may not get as much as they had hoped based off of, again, their activity at the local level, which we know is ongoing for a lot of folks. An additional challenge is obviously not having enough funding from the surcharges and fees as it is, and maybe not as high of sales of the search and rescue card as we would like to see, just again to get as much money as possible back to the local sheriff's offices for their search and rescue teams. Sometimes it's a lack of just county engagement based off of, again, lack of personnel, lack of interest, lack of time. There's just so many factors, as we are familiar with being in the environment we are. We understand a lot of folks wear a lot of different hats, and it's just not maybe deemed as worth time at the point. But we're always trying to spread the word, and hopefully, again, through making things easier, and one day, fingers crossed, we get a digital platform to make it super easy for these submissions and participation. And then obviously time commitment. I know that I wish I had more time to commit to ramping up this program, and I know a lot of the statewide sheriffs feel the same way, as we try and market the program to get the best level of engagement that we can. So why should you know this? I see a lot of our emergency manager partners on here, and why does this benefit you? Because money. We all understand the various demands of, demands of time and money, and the program works to reimburse and hopefully in that effort free up some other funds within, depending on how an individual county works, but obviously this does directly impact sheriff's offices and their search and rescue teams, but hopefully frees up some money to dedicate to other critical needs within the sheriff's office or the jurisdiction itself. And I know anytime that we can provide financial support, it's helpful, and again provides the additional funding for equipment purchases or training opportunities that I think are very beneficial on all levels. So money's the name of the game, right? So that's the basics of the program. I am very fortunate to work with incredibly talented and selfless folks who are willing to go out and help those of us. I've never been had to be search and rescued before, and that's my goal in life, but they go out and are recreationists, and they go out and dedicate their time to helping them. So I'm super grateful I get to work with this program and the individuals who run it. And that's what I have if there's any questions.
I've got a question, Tara.
Yeah.
You talked about that sheet with the costs. How much does a typical search and rescue operation cost, Sheriff's team?
So I've seen anywhere from, like a $20 fuel bill to upwards to close to 20 grand. A typical I would say is maybe $100 to $150 because that usually covers fuel costs and food to some extent. So it's just kind of that, what's the average, what's the typical search and rescue mission for a search and rescue team. It just basically depends on how far they had to travel, how long they were out there, and what equipment they needed to help support them in that effort.
Gotcha. So just obviously depends on days, how long it's going to take them to find them, if they're.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Are there any other questions? Thanks for answering that. So, any other questions for Tara?
Tara, this is Jeff. Can you hear me?
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, maybe this would be a good opportunity to plug for the Search and Rescue Conference that is taking place at Fish Lake this weekend, Friday and Saturday, Sevier County.
Yes, great plug. Thank you, Jeff. Yes, the Search and Rescue Conference takes place every year, the first weekend in June. Sevier County Sheriff hosts that at Fish Lake, and it brings all the search and rescue commanders and members to discuss like best practices and lessons learned. And it's a great conference for search and rescue folks, for sure. Thank you, Jeff.
Any other plugs?
Yeah, go donate or go get a search and rescue assistance card. Especially if you're a hiker.
Yeah, just say a lot of them. Joe's got his hand raised.
Hey, thanks so much, and Tara, great job. I was going to say that you can blame me for the URL that is currently on. It's really complicated. I just went and added a URL or a link on dem.utah.gov/forms. So if you guys want to share that in the future, that'll be a really easy place to find it as well. And then we'll link back to the Search and Rescue Financial Assistance Program as well, the main page from that page. So we'll just continue to make it more easily found for you. So thanks.
Thank you, PIO Joe.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Tara, for your presentation today. As a reminder, this webinar and all other webinars in this series will be available on the DEM website at dem.utah.gov/exercises or now at dem.utah.gov/iwonder. Next week, there will not be an iWonder webinar. In 2 weeks, we'll have a webinar put on by Tanner Peterson covering disaster financial management. If you have any iWonder topic suggestions, please reach out to tbodley@utah.gov to have your topic added to our calendar. We're always excited to help you explore and get to know all that DEM can offer the emergency management community. Until next time, keep wondering.